Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to discuss the major astrology of April 2023, where I have 6 astrological energies to discuss and cover with you, as they are the defining energies of this month, and they are also the energies taking us into eclipse season. So April is quite dynamic, and one of the main themes that is really coming up for this month is looking at what is still sitting in your emotional body. What emotions are unprocessed? What has perhaps been something you haven't paid attention to, you haven't been aware of, and it's meant to come up. It's meant to be released and purged. It's also meant to be consciously looked at and learned from. There is information in the emotional body that's going to be strongly activated throughout April, and it's one of the big themes that we're meant to consciously dive into. And I'm going to be talking about that even more in today's show. Now, as I was looking at the energies of April 2023, we have some distinct energies as well that are supporting us in very clear forward movement, but it does contain the energetics of what you're willing to untangle, unravel, and release to set yourself free. Where do you need to emotionally set yourself free from something that maybe you have been grasping onto or hanging onto? Anything as well that perhaps you've been unconsciously connected to that's created some form of expectation, or perhaps it's even been something that you've been afraid of letting go of because it holds very deep karmic imprints. And this is where April is going to help catapult you forward, but you have to be honest with yourself, honest around what has been grasping onto you or you've been grasping onto it, but it doesn't really have any forward development at this point. Whether the energetics are too different, the frequencies are off, there's no longer a healthy connection. There's something here that we're meant to honestly face related to our emotions. And so as we move through April, we're going to see Mars in Cancer sextile the North Node in Taurus at 4 to 5 degrees. That's from April 3rd to April 7th. Then the second half of the month, we're going to see Saturn in Pisces sextile the North Node in Taurus at 4 degrees. That's in effect from about April 15th to April 25th. So I wanted to start with these two energy signatures of Mars in Cancer sextiling the North Node, Saturn in Pisces sextiling the North Node. This again is occurring at 5 and 4 degrees of Taurus. And these are energies that show you what you're ready to turn over, where there needs to be an energetic turnover, an emotional turnover. Perhaps you're even feeling like this is the month for me to really look at some things, face some things, be aware of some things that aren't in alignment for my forward path. That North Node in Taurus is where we are finding a new steadiness, a new frequency of self-love and personal worth that we're trusting as our own personal beacon. We're understanding that this is where I have to go. This is what I have to choose. This is the path for me. And that can feel very clear. But with Mars in Cancer sextiling it, it brings up whatever has been emotionally unresolved. And Mars in Cancer relates to our inner child. It relates to the energetics that we weren't able to really process or understand when we were younger. It also can be a part of our psyche that's tuned into previous life circumstances that we just accepted as normal, as part of the status quo. And there's been this elevation where perhaps now that Mars in Cancer is triggering you to face something and to be very clear about whether or not it supports your heart. Does this support love in me? Does this support value in me? Do I feel supported? Do I feel seen, recognized, and loved? Or if it's not of that frequency, there can be some energetics to untangle around what needs to be let go, but within you. So this is where the personal work really comes in to show you, wow, I've got emotional energy around this still. I have a lot coming up about this situation, about this experience, about this part of my path. And this is a sextile to the North Node, which can help simplify it, can help give you a new clarity and steadiness that maybe even feels too simple at times. Almost like, if I'm willing to work through this, whatever this is, there's something that gets lighter. It's a lightening up. And then we have the Saturn in Pisces also sextiling that North Node. And Saturn brings in the responsibility for your own path, the responsibility of looking at what serves you, what does not. And Saturn in Pisces is giving us that strength to allow transitions to occur, to allow the endings, to allow something to close out. And this actually feels very karmic, where we can be in various karmic energetics and cycles that we're not even aware of at times until it connects to the heart, until it connects to what's coming up within you emotionally. So this can be that, yes, you have some clarity around what is good for you. And maybe that's what you realize as well with these connections to the North Node, is that you see, yes, this really nourishes me. This really supports me. This is something that is clear and true, and I want this in my life. But then there can also be this realization of what you haven't let go of, but you're feeling it slipping away, or you feel that it's not connecting. It's almost like there's going to be something about April that will shift our emotional bodies because of what we're letting go of, because of what is karmically complete. But it might even feel like you just need time to process it, to sit with it, as well as to be in your own space. These energies are quite private as well. And because this is in the water signs and the earth sign of Taurus, it could be that you're internally processing it and you're not looking to talk it out. You're not looking to share or open up. In fact, this could be something very internal that you're feeling within yourself, and that's where you want it to stay. So one of the themes here in April is a deep reprogramming of our emotional bodies, of what we are holding emotionally, how we're able to process it and release it, to move through it, how we're able to trust our own personal process without needing external validation, without seeking out another to do it for us. There's also the energy here. I'm seeing it as a very deep cellular coding that could relate to some type of unfulfilled part of your life, part of your world. It's almost like there's maybe been a fear of looking at something because a fear of the emptiness is on the other side, sort of like anticipating, okay, if I dump out this whole bucket, it's going to be empty again, or then it's going to be an unfulfilling part of my life. Or there could be something as well coming up around where we don't want to look at a fear, because if you don't look at a fear, at least you have something that's energetically there. And I hope that makes sense. It's almost like choosing a fear instead of choosing the new start, or choosing what can come and develop next. Because not only are Mars and Saturn connecting with that North Node, it means they're also trining the South Node in Scorpio, which is where we hold on to emotional energies, hold on to things just to have something to hold on to. So look at maybe what is coming up for you, especially if you have planets or points in the early degrees of the water signs or the earth signs, because those 0 to 5 degrees of the earth signs and the water signs are where this configuration, this reconfiguration is taking place. And what I'm feeling too is that there could be a tightness around what you're grasping onto when the universe is trying to bring in flows of release and movement. So this is going to be a big theme here in April with these energies around what you are emotionally attached to, what you're emotionally holding on to, but truthfully, it's expiring, it's ending. And we're going to see that even more in May. So April is basically a revelation of where you can let go. And this can be, again, very karmic. And there can be a lot that comes up around that, where there could be sadness around releasing the karma or closing it out. There can be unfulfilled energies around that. It can feel very unsatisfying. But there's also the energies here that are moving us ahead. And what I'm feeling is that the more we have a willingness to be very honest with ourselves about this is the end of the line, there's no more here, this is over, there's no coming back from this, then you set yourself free. And there's also something here about being strong enough and courageous enough to keep going on your own, to keep following that individual path that is deeply connected to your soul, that is deeply connected to what you're here to experience and move through in this lifetime, but to trust your own independence and to look at what comes up for you around that. So amongst this intense energy, we also have the Sun conjunct Jupiter in Aries on April 11th and 12th. And this is occurring at 21 degrees of Aries in your chart. So this is often known as the most abundant and beautiful day of the year when the Sun is conjunct Jupiter. Now, it's in Aries, again at 21 degrees. And so this can be a wonderful uprising of self. This can be something that you're realizing that really is true for you. This is where standing in the courage of who you are, meaning being very strong and confident in that sense of self, opens up opportunities, resources, possibilities, good news, good developments. This is also the energy signature of the universe supporting you in a new start, in a new beginning, a new adventure, something that you're initiating. This is a powerful way to move it forward. This is also where something feels good. Perhaps it even feels too easy. So when we take this energy of the Sun-Jupiter conjunction, and we add it into what I was just discussing about being very honest with yourself around what needs to be released, what's over, what's truly done for you at an emotional level, what is karmically over. It's almost like the universe brings in something that validates that and celebrates you, that gives you that message of congratulations, we're so proud of you, you moved through this. Here is your new start. Here is the next direction. Here is some good news. Now, this will be especially strong for you if you have planets or points around 21 degrees of Aries. Also 21 degrees of the fire signs of Leo and Sagittarius. And I would actually give this an orb of 20, 21, and 22 degrees. And that's because the exact conjunction is happening there. And that means the energies of action and growth, creativity, movement are all coming through. So April 11th and 12th is a powerhouse day of manifestations, abundance, really feeling energized around what you're moving towards and what you want to do next. And again, because this is the energy of a beginning, this would be a good day or good few days to be be very intentional around the new start, around what you are putting energy in, because it has the potential to keep developing and growing. So we love this day of the year when the sun is conjunct Jupiter, and it can also mean that a lot happens at once, almost like everything comes through to support what you're moving towards or what you're developing next. And it's also a good day to just watch your energy overall so you don't go overboard, you don't amplify or exaggerate. Also to make sure that whatever is coming up, whatever inspiration, idea, that it can really go the distance. Because when there's a lot of Aries energy, it can be like there's a lot happening, but nothing comes of it. Nothing develops. Nothing really has any follow through. So this is where you want to be very intentional with what is coming up so that you can say, yes, that's the thing. That's what I want. That's what I'm going to put energy into and invest in. And then that's where the energy continues to evolve and move into the new potential and how that takes shape and takes form. Now, Jupiter moves into Taurus in May. So we only have about a month and a half left for Jupiter to journey through Aries. It's moving through this first sign of the zodiac very quickly. It enters Taurus on May 16th. So only about a month after this conjunction, and that isn't too long to wait to see what can really grow. So keep in mind that April 11th and 12th, the energies are extra big. People could be very extra, and there could be a sense of optimism as well, because this is an uplifting energy. It has a driving force to it. So it's good to be aware of how do you want to use this. So look at where 21 degrees of Aries is in your natal chart by house. And that house is where this abundance of the sun conjunct Jupiter is occurring for you. And that house is where there will be new activations, new energetics, and new support coming through. There is encouraging energy for the new parts of yourself that you've been trusting, where you have been applying and investing in faith for what you want to create and move into next. This will be a month where those messages and activations will be powerful and they'll be very clear. This Aries energy is very direct, and so there's something that you won't miss. There's going to be information, energies, signs, something coming in that's very evident and clear, and it's also a confirmation of what you are moving into and beginning. So there's going to be a lot here that could be exciting. It could restore your faith. Restore your faith in what you've been trusting and believing, in what you've really been wanting and desiring. So allow this energy to validate who you are now, meaning the changes that you're going through, the life changes, the energy changes, whatever you are moving through. There's going to be information, guidance, and clarity in April that says, yes, this is correct for me. Yes, this is what I want. This is right on time. And it is meant to move us into new parts of ourselves that we want, that we've been waiting for. And it can happen quickly. It can happen in a way that just kind of makes your head spin, where you're like, wow, that was fast. Almost like you feel like I've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and then all of a sudden it's here, whatever it is. And keep in mind, this can also be an internal change within you, where if there's something that you have been processing, moving through, you've been reprogramming it, you've been very intentional, you could feel that immediate shift. You could feel like, wow, that's just gone. That thing, that heaviness, that burden, whatever it was in your energy, it could just feel like it is no longer connecting, no longer around you. It has exited and left the building, and that alone can be a beautiful energetic opening. So this is a month where we're really being encouraged. In fact, we're being required to move into new parts of our own frequency, of our own energetics, and to trust that forward movement. And at the same time, another important energy to be aware of and to stay conscious of is the fact that this Mars in Cancer is active throughout April. And I already mentioned how it is interacting with Saturn and with the North Node, but there's also going to be an ongoing square from Mars in Cancer to Chiron in Aries. And this energy will be exact at the end of the month, specifically at 16 degrees of each astrological sign. So 16 degrees of Cancer, 16 degrees of Aries. But the energy is also moving into May, as they will each move from 16 degrees to 17 degrees. And then in May, they're still in a fairly close square until the Scorpio lunar eclipse on May 5th. So we're going to be working with this energy signature once again of the emotional body healing, of really looking at what you need to strengthen as well as what needs to be let go of. And you're going to know because there will be triggers, there will be activations, there will be things rising up that you find yourself needing to consciously manage. Because when Mars in Cancer squares Chiron in Aries, this is a porcupine. This is porcupine energy, very prickly, very much about feeling ultra sensitive, ultra reactionary. This is where things that are very small can just kind of spout off. This is where something that was dormant all of a sudden is a geyser, all of a sudden just goes off. And so we're going to have to be aware of this within ourselves personally and collectively. Again, if you have planets or points at 16 and 17 degrees of the cardinal signs. Cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. 16 or 17 degrees is where these energies are going to be activated and revealing to you what has been unacknowledged. It's been maybe something you've repressed or held back. It can very well be a childhood pattern. This can be activating the unhealed inner child. And if you know that's what it is, then you're going to understand when it pops up. When your 11-year-old self comes up, you're going to know what it is. When your 5-year-old self comes up, you're going to know this is what's going on. And again, because it's Mars in Cancer and it's squaring Chiron in Aries, it has a definite energy signature of what has hurt or harmed your sense of self, and what has maybe even brought you into this place of, I don't know how to move through this. I don't know how to process this. And with Mars in Cancer, it's through the feeling, whether that is a really intense cry, a really intense activation or outlet of energy, of emotion, really being able to let it flow through you and not having the mind or ego shut it down, allowing those feelings to arise and to come out. And even if it feels stormy, even if it's really uncomfortable, this is ultimately a huge release of what you've been carrying in your emotional world that has affected your heart, that has affected what you need, that has affected how you thought you could receive, or even revealing what you did not receive that you need. This is about your personal emotional needs and what has not come through or shown up, what has perhaps been buried and suppressed. It also feels like there's something in your consciousness that you're already aware of around this theme, where it might not be brand new, but all of a sudden it comes out. And it's not necessarily graceful. This is not a smooth gliding energy. This is an eruption or an explosion or something just coming up and out. I was just in Iceland and we went and saw this geyser that goes off every 7 to 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know people like that. People who go off every 7 to 10 minutes, that's what this energy is. It's kind of this very big outburst of emotional expression. And if you're aware of it, you're going to know that this is yours to own, to work with, and that there's something here that you're meant to understand about your own needs. So it's very personal. And that can be something you work with. You claim it as, okay, I'm going through this. I need time to process. I need to sit with this. I need to run it through my body. I need to run it through all of my energetics to cleanse it out. But it also can make you hypersensitive, hyper responsive, hyper reactionary. There's an impulsivity here that will need to be managed responsibly. So again, this is going to move into May. So the last part of April into May, this Mars in Cancer squaring Chiron in Aries is going to show us a lot of our own inner child wounding and pain, parts of our heart that maybe haven't felt accepted, loved, or respected. But this is exactly where you understand the message that's coming up for you, and you are the master of your energetics. You are in charge of what you do with this and what you acknowledge and shift so that you're no longer holding on to something from the past. And that Mars in Cancer triggers parts of our experiences that we aren't even consciously aware of at times. So one thing you can do is really ask yourself, is this about right now? Whatever I'm responding to, whatever's coming up, whatever the trigger is it truly about this experience, this interaction, this conversation, whatever it might be for you? Or does this relate deeply to a healing theme from my childhood? And then if you can redirect yourself back to that experience or back to that initial place of pain, that's where the healing is going to occur, and it can move fast. That's one of the areas of Chiron in Aries, is that when you identify it, it's this is the wound, this is the pain, this is what hurts, this is my boo-boo, then that Aries energy can work quickly to either let it go and resolve it, or to help you understand how to pull it into the present moment and make sure that it's in alignment with who you are now. So you can live from that understanding, you can live from that consciousness that also includes that experience. So what I'm seeing here is that there is a broadening and expansion of the energy this month where you could welcome in parts of your inner child, welcome in parts of your family, your lineage, your genealogy, and your ancestors. You could welcome in some of those experiences and see them in a new light. See them in a new way. See this as a different version of a story. And I feel like that's part of what April can trigger and bring up. It can definitely bring up family stuff. It can definitely bring up what has been unresolved from the past. And it can be very uncomfortable, but the Aries energy is reminding you of who you are now, the version of yourself that you are experiencing and living from. It can bring you into your power and remind you of your own courage, your own strength, and also the independence to go your own way, where you don't feel tied or tethered to anything that isn't really good for you and isn't good for your heart. And so this brings me to one of the biggest energy signatures of April, which is the April 19th Aries Solar Eclipse, happening at 29 degrees of Aries, 50 minutes. Right after this eclipse, we're going to see the sun enter Taurus. But this eclipse is so powerful and so big because of the square from Pluto. Now, I'm going to have a separate podcast episode for you next week, next Monday, April 10th, discussing the energies of this Aries solar eclipse because it is the second biggest eclipse of this decade. It's the second biggest eclipse because of the square to Pluto. The first biggest eclipse was January 2020 when we had the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn that was also in partnership with a Cancer lunar eclipse. So not only did we have a strong lineup of planets in Capricorn in January 2020, including Pluto, we then had an eclipse in Cancer that elevated the energy, activated it even more, and of course had long-term unfolding effects around the globe. This eclipse in April is the second biggest of this decade because it squares Pluto, which signifies deep, permanent world changes. Also, on a personal level, on an individual level, this eclipse is showing you what parts of yourself you are complete with, meaning Aries at 29 degrees, 50 minutes is near the very, very, very end of Aries. There's only 10 minutes left of Aries. There's a release of who you no longer are because Pluto in Aquarius is bringing in the activations, downloads, and higher understandings of who you are at a cosmic level. So I feel like part of this eclipse is showing us which parts of our ego, our self-identity, our personal concept are no longer a part of our journey. What is not traveling forward with us anymore because we understand how we have evolved, how we have changed, how you're different now. And this Pluto in Aquarius being so strong, so significant for what we're moving into now, this Pluto in Aquarius is expanding you into more of who you are at an individual frequency level. It's activating more of our cosmic energies that are tied to our star families, our starseed energies, what we are here on the planet to move towards, what we're also here to fully embody in this lifetime through new forms of enlightenment and cosmic understanding. And so there's parts of ourselves that are being removed. And I'm seeing this as a layer of top skin just melting off and melting away. That's how I'm seeing this final degree of Aries, where there's a part of yourself that was perhaps fully formed and you knew it well, and it's become too heavy or it's no longer needed for this next chapter and where we're going over the next 20 years. So put it into a long-range perspective that this April 19th solar eclipse is activating and revealing where we're ready to go next, but there are parts of ourselves that are going to melt away. And again, I'm seeing it as that top layer of skin that's very thin, and it feels too like it's already been retracting or shrinking, sort of like shrink wrap, sort of like that top layer that is just no longer needed so that the fresh skin, the fresh layers can come out, can breathe, can be revealed, and can also be strengthened. So this is going to be an eclipse that has an energy cycle of at least 2 years. It is strongly activated again in May and again in June. I'll be describing all of that more in that separate podcast on April 10th. But this is where April is going to bring your attention to who you are now and who you no longer are. And also show you how you work with change, how you work with new beginnings, how you're able to stabilize yourself during the unknown. Also, how you're ready to accept and work with more of your fuller frequency, more of your gifts, more of what makes you different and unique, really shows you more of how you're here to evolve in this lifetime. I also feel like this particular solar eclipse is going to bring up what is ending and completing in other timelines, where there are always these parallel timelines that our energy can tap into. And it feels like there's going to be some timelines that have very significant endings. And as I say this, I'm being brought into a timeline where there are instant activations, instant awakenings, and almost like a sense of feeling so impulsive, like I can't deal with this stuff anymore. I just want to throw it all away. I just want to start fresh. I don't want any of this stuff all around me. Then there's another timeline where you could feel that a part of your life is ending, where you're done with a certain role or priority. You're done with a certain job or an experience in your life. You're just done. And the energy feels like just walking away. And it feels like it's part of this impulsiveness of, I'm just complete with this. I want nothing to do with it anymore. I have to go towards my new. So a big part of this energy signature is that there are going to be clear messages that could almost be jolting and really too much at times. Like it could just feel like an overload or an overwhelm of energy coming in, especially with Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. That's activating more of your own soul's experiences across so many timelines, almost like you could just have this sudden knowingness, this sudden understanding of what you're here to do, where you're meant to go, what is calling to you, what is true for you. And then that brings up some maybe surprising closures, immediate endings, things just shutting down, whether that's in your life or otherwise. It just feels like there's a very clear turning the corner energy. And it also has the no going back to previous understandings of self, no going back to previous levels of consciousness. It's sort of like you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't take it out because it's already been put in. It's already been integrated. So there's a lot here that is a powerhouse of change. And there's much more to the story that, again, I'll talk about on the April 10th podcast, but just know that this month, April, is about moving forward. I'm also feeling like there can be a leapfrog effect, like this quantum leap, quantum energy shifts to the point where it makes your head spin and it just feels like it's all too much. So know that this is a definite acceleration of energy. This is where we are powering up, leveling up, and there's going to be choices that need to be made. And I'm seeing the choices from the third eye, but it's the elevated human mind. It's not the ego-based mind. It's almost like however your third eye works for you, whether you see an answer, you feel it, you hear it, that's where the decision making stems from. Whereas if the energy sinks into the ego, it's going to be too limited. It also feels like trying to stay in a comfort zone isn't going to work. And trying to stay in something because it's how you've always done it isn't going to work. This is about the new energies coming in that are already here, that are already moving us forward, and looking at how you are able to trust yourself, trust your gut, trust that immediate response without circling in the head too much and without relying on too much external validation. Now, right after this April 19th Aries solar eclipse, we're going to have Mercury station retrograde at 15 degrees of Taurus on April 21st. And this is when Mercury at 15 degrees of Taurus travels back to 5 degrees of Taurus. And what I find so fascinating about this Mercury retrograde is that it covers the same territory in your chart as Jupiter will be retrograde in Taurus later on in September. So Mercury retrograde between 15 to 5 degrees of Taurus, which will start on April 21st and go until May 14th, which is also Mother's Day, is bringing your attention to Taurus areas of your life, bringing your attention to what you are invested in, your finances, your taxes, your money, what matters to you, what has value to you, and what isn't working anymore, what is no longer needed, what's no longer operating, what's no longer having any kind of payoff. And because Mercury retrograde is covering the same territory that Jupiter in Taurus is going to cover during retrograde, if you can clean it up now, if there's things you can get rid of, make new choices, make new priorities around, when Jupiter covers this territory in your chart later in September or October, you're going to already have an understanding of what you value, what you want, what you desire. I also feel like that Jupiter retrograde is going to help us create something new that supports what is truly meaningful now. And yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves because that's not till September. But I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that it's very rare to have a Mercury retrograde the same year that will have Jupiter retrograde cover in your chart. So there's clear energy here from the universe that this is a part of your life. You're cleaning up, you're reorganizing, you're looking at what you need, what you don't need. And there's also support here for whatever the Aries energy has initiated and started, then the Taurus energy makes it more practical, brings in important questions to look at. Also, there's a slowdown here. So for all the ways the Aries energy is big and powerful and getting us moving, there is a slower moving energy with Taurus that helps us really recalibrate it, really embody it, and to make sure that, yes, this is what I want to take forward. This is what matters to me. And that's going to be very grounding and supportive because of all the karmic cycles that are clearing out in April and May, because of what is ending, what you're done with. Again, really looking at where you're ready to free up more of your energy and to find peace with something, someone, some situation, some job or role or whatever it is in your world. Look at where you can accept what is, and that's it. To find that equilibrium, to find that place in yourself that isn't fighting in any way, because that Mars in Cancer can keep stirring things up, can keep bringing up something new. But I feel like so much of this month is understanding that you've grown and shifted in ways you're probably not even aware of just yet. But that's what's coming through. That's what's being integrated, is that Spirit sees what you have been through, what you've healed, what you've decided, what you've reprogrammed, how you've been actively working with your belief systems. Spirit sees that and says, okay, you're ready for the new, the next chapter, the new adventure, the new start. And as that comes in, there can be flare-ups. There can be things that come up and they fight for your attention, or they don't want you to let go of them. But this is where, when you can just peacefully find gratitude in the situation or in the feeling, when you can find a place within yourself that understands, I grew from this. I gained wisdom from this. I understood more of myself and my energy from this. And now I'm moving on. That's a big energy signature here in April, is that the new is coming in, ready or not. The changes are happening, ready or not. And this is where we are really in our power with our spiritual mastery and our spiritual tools so that we can use those to navigate the big energies of this year. So again, it can feel like quite an emotional month. There can be stuff that gets churned up, but really check in with yourself and say, is this about today and this present moment? Or is this about something from my past? Or is this about something that feels like a comfort zone, but I've actually outgrown it? And I think that's what we're going to see in April. You're going to see what you've outgrown, what no longer resonates, what no longer connects, and then really have this sense of strength, confidence, and love for yourself around how you're different now, and that there's a lot more coming that moves us into these new paradigms and these new energies. So it is quite a month, and so is May. May is a big month as well. So we'll keep talking about this in these podcast episodes. I have a new one for you every Monday and every Wednesday. And also, this is a reminder to please sign in or sign up for my 2023 Soul Growth Astrology program, where we talk about the eclipses, Mercury retrograde, the upcoming Venus retrograde, Jupiter moving into Taurus, everything that's happening right now. This is where you understand what's happening in your chart. And that's how you can see the themes for you this year, how you're learning, how you're growing, what you're moving into, as well as what the eclipses are bringing up for you in terms of life changes. So please check that out. I'll put a link below the podcast. You can find all of my other current offerings and programs over at mollymccord.online. And I'll be back on Wednesday to keep discussing the weekly energies. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being here. Wishing you a beautiful journey through April 2023. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Take good care.